how your birth month impact your success. Let's go. Holy waste, the
This
animation.
is all the players currently in the Spanish Football League. If you
Holy
group them by
waste.
month of birth, something interesting happens.
Look at this animation.
Do you see it?
Holy waste.
I'll give you a hint. There are significantly more players born in the first 6 months than in the
I am
last
at
6 months of the
July.
year.
So I'm at
This
the
is caused
mid.
by a phenomenon called the relative age effect. I'll explain what that means. Let's say it's December 31st of 2022. Two friends meet for a birthday party. Red was born on
Okay.
January 1st, 2004. Blue, the birthday boy, was born on December 31st and just turned 18. Right now, they're both 18 and you wouldn't notice the difference between them. After
Yep.
all, Red is only 6% older than Blue. However, if we
6%
travel back
older.
in time,
What is
it's
that
a different
math?
story. Let's go back to their first day of primary school.
What's happening, bro?
It's now September 1st of 2010. Even though the difference between their ages is still 11 months and 30 days, the relative age difference increased. Red is now 18% older than Blue. At
Wait,
this age, the
how?
11 additional months he had to grow make a difference and you can see it.
How? How does
He's
that
tall,
work?
Blue.
Wait a
At
second.
this age, the 11 additional months he had to grow. Red is now 18%,
How?
is still 11 months and 30 days.
Even though difference between ages is still 11 months and 30 days.
The relative age difference increased. Red
1 January 2004, 31. Oh, it's
is
not
now
2003.
18% older than Blue. At this age, the 11 additional months he had to grow make a difference and you can see it. He's taller, stronger, and mentally more
Yes,
developed.
my brother.
He's
How are
getting
you, my
an
brother? What's up, Baki, dude? I miss you, Lord. Man, how are you, bro?
advantage in sports and
Every day I
school.
wake up, I think
This
of
is
you.
known as the relative age
Abundantly.
effect. People born earlier in the school or sports year tend to perform to a higher level than those born at the end of the year.
Panama on which everything good, nice. No cap, kappa kappa. Panama by which children born early in their year of birth perform more higher than children born later. I think that's bullshit.
But if we travel back to 2022, these differences should disappear, right? Well, not really. Research shows us
That
that
is
even
not
when we
true.
become adults, people who are older than their peers during childhood still have an advantage in sports, education, and
Nah.
even in positions of leadership.
I
The
don't
small
think so.
advantages at an early age can build up into bigger advantages in adulthood. This is known as the Matthew effect, aka the rich get richer, the poor get
Get
poorer.
poor. I don't
What
even
is a
know who
small
Matthew
advantage at the
is.
start can develop into a bigger advantage later on. The point of this video is to talk about how the relative age effect can impact success in education,
Listen.
sports, career, and what we can do about it. Let's
So-
start with sports. In most sports, children are grouped based on their calendar year of birth. On average, children born earlier in the year are taller, stronger, and faster. Therefore, an older child will have a
Really?
higher chance of being selected by the coach to play. Being selected to play means the child gets more experience, becomes better, and ends up with
Don't
higher
think
chances
so.
of becoming a professional athlete later on. It's
Don't
the
think
Matthew
so.
effect. The older player is picked because he's better, and then ends up becoming better with time
That's
because he
wrong.
was picked, apparently validating the early decision of the coach. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
I
There's
mean, they're
plenty of
just making
research
this
about
up.
relative age effects in sports. There are studies in football, baseball, ice hockey, tennis, you name it. I decided to share the findings of this particular study in Sweden. I chose it because it's quite
Holy
recent
base,
and
look at the
honestly
map.
because it's the first result on Google. Their conclusions? The birthday distributions were consistently skewed for every individual sport investigated. They looked at different sports and analyzed the birthdays of every athlete. They grouped them in blocks of 4 months, also known as tertiles, and they compared the actual number of athletes per tertile against the numbers that you would expect from looking at the birth of the population in Sweden. The y-axis shows the ratio between these two numbers. In other words, if the ratio is higher than 1, that means there is an abnormally high number of athletes born in those months. They looked at 14 to 17-year-old athletes in
I'm pretty
athletics
sure
and they
it's
got these
luck.
results.
There's no way that's.
Take a second to see what this means. There's 27% more athletes born in the beginning
I think
of the
I'm
year
the
than
only
what
one
would
in
be
the
normal
world
for
who
the
don't
Swedish
believe in
population,
science.
and 28% fewer at the end
Like
of the year.
Jiminy,
These are big
cancer,
gaps. If the
everything
results are
that-
accurate, this means that the teenagers born in the first tertile are 74% more likely to
I
become
never understand
athletes
what
than those
the
born in
sign
the
does
last
even.
tertile. The authors framed the results in a way that might give a better picture
I feel like every sign has something positive to make them feel good about themselves. I don't know. It's so weird.
of what this means. In theory, these gaps represent the missed stars. Teenagers that had the potential but never made it as athletes because of the month they were born in.
Nah, that's
Whereas
not
this
true.
gap represents the athletes that are, quote, not talented, teenagers that wouldn't have made it as athletes if the rules were even. The gap is not as big for older age groups, but it's still there. They also found similar results in cross-country skiing and alpine skiing.
I don't know where they're taking their data from.
The authors even mention that the relative age effect can have a negative impact on public health because it can reduce the lifetime levels of physical activity.
What is this,
They
man?
even found a
Like, what
reverse
is this,
relative age
like,
effect
what is
in
this?
esports for some age groups. They
What
suggest the
is this?
hypothesis that relatively younger children are more likely to drop out from physical sports and focus more on other hobbies like playing video games. One important
What?
note, in most investigated sports, the birth age distribution was not correlated to the performance of the adults. In other
What?
words, being born early means you get a higher chance of being selected to play when young, but once you're older and
I
you're
don't
part of the
understand.
selected,
This is like
it doesn't really
Popega
matter
stuff.
anymore.
Who
Some
believes
studies
this?
even mention the underdog hypothesis. Since younger
And
children
video
are
is
less
good and
physically
explained
mature,
very
they must
well, but
possess or develop superior
who
skills to be
believes
competitive.
this?
The relative age effect is also present in education. Each country has their own criteria to determine to which school year
Nah.
students belong.
This
In
is-
some countries, like Portugal where I'm from, the cutoff date is December
Everything
31st.
is hypothetical.
This means January
There's
kids
no
are the oldest
they
in
are,
class.
These are facts.
In the southern hemisphere, February and March are common cutoff months, whereas August and September are more common in the
And
northern
there's so many
hemisphere.
people who are
No
born
matter
in
what
late
cutoff date
and
we
they're
choose,
successful.
we're going to end up
So
with a group of
how-
students
how
with
this makes
older
sense?
and younger children. Older
I think
children
they're
are
doing it
cognitively
on
more
like
developed.
average
As a
based.
result, they score higher marks on average, and by the time they end school, they can
On
be more
average
likely to
based-
attend higher education in academic schools over vocational schools. Once again, the Matthew effect. The skills learned by the older students early in school can build up and increase their advantage when applying to university later on. There is plenty of research pointing to relative age effect on education. For example, this study looked at the performance of
This
Dutch teenagers in
affects
school for each
in
month
those
of birth.
schools.
In the Netherlands, October kids are the oldest of the class. The authors
Maybe in
analyzed
the
the
West,
percentage of students
but
that had
overall,
repeated grade,
I don't
and
think it
as
matters, to
expected,
be
the
honest.
younger students struggled the most. They also
Maybe
checked the
in the
percentage of
West.
students that skipped the grade, and once again, the older students performed the best. So, we came to the conclusion that the relative age effect has an impact in sports and education. We've also seen how small early advantages can build up to bigger advantages later on.
I mean,
Therefore,
that's
it's
true.
not a surprise that this can also affect your career. There are studies in the US Senate and House of Representatives, in Finnish politics,
I mean,
and even
who
in the corporate CEOs
studies
of
like
S&P
what?
500
Like you don't
companies.
study on the
These
whole
studies
world.
all
You're
have similar
studying
conclusions.
like
Professionals
the
who
one
were born in
school
late
and you
months
think
of the
it's
school
true.
calendar are underrepresented in positions of leadership.
How come you can say
So,
it
what can we do to solve
for
the
the
relative
whole
age
world?
effect? Well, unfortunately, if you're watching this video, it's probably a bit too late to do much for yourself. However,
Holy
what we can
based.
do is to try to reduce this effect on our younger generations.
Holy
Research
based,
on
my
this
friend.
topic often mentions the same point. We should separate children based on abilities, not on their age.
Yeah,
In
that's
sports,
true.
children should be selected based on skill.
Now I can
not on
blame all
size
my
or strength.
personal
And in
failure on
schools,
this.
Children should be allowed to learn at their own pace.
I was born into a
Finally, we
bachelor
should
school
educate
1 year
coaches
late,
and
so I have
leaders on
always
the
been on the
consequences of
oldest
the
and
relative
I
age
can see the
effect,
difference
which is
with
also the point of
performance
this
of the
video.
younger so
If you like stories told with data, consider leaving a like in the video and
I mean,
subscribing
that's
to the
so
channel.
Popega.
We're
You
getting
can
more
literally-
people to work on our videos,
This is so stupid.
and we're
Like, what about the people who are born 2 years ago? If they go in the same class, they will own it.
trying to scale up the channel so we can keep improving with our content.
Yeah.
If you want to help us with this project, you can support us
Yo,
on
yo,
Patreon.
yo,